It's been something of an uneventful couple of months for Bitcoin, following the big slide from the all-time highs in April. But given the fact that it continues to hold above the sort of 28,000, 28,750 area, is it building a base here for another look back at those April highs? Bitcoin's always an interesting one to cover, but the last couple of months have not been the most interesting when we look at some of its more recent history going to the end of last year. We saw this massive sell-off, of course, from 64,000 down to sort of 28,750, that sort of area, and we've seen this level pretty much continue to hold over the last couple of months or so. You can see we get the odd probe down towards sort of 28.5, 29,000, but the buyers come back out. So I'm just wondering, what does this mean for the trend in Bitcoin? You could argue the longer term trend is still up, even though it's about 50% off those all-time highs. So as usual in this video, I'll take a look at Bitcoin in a bit more detail, talk about some of the recent news. We've had some news out this week, and then come back onto the charts and see where the opportunities might be. We do have a trade running on Bitcoin at the moment from the 21st of May, buying in and putting a stop loss the other side of that big support so far. It's underwater. It's £170 against me at the moment. There's not a lot going on with it, to be honest. It's been bubbling around that level. So when we come back in the second half, we'll take a look at this chart and see, should I stay in that trade or should I maybe get out and look to enter at a better level? Hello, I'm David Jones from Capital.com, and I thought we'd do an update on Bitcoin. There's been a bit of recent news, so I thought let's take a fresh look at it and see if things are changing. So as usual, in this video, I'll talk about some of the recent news, some of the levels to watch, then we will jump back onto the charts and take a look at things in a bit more detail. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, if you could click subscribe, it'd be much appreciated. It does help support the channel, and it means we can continue to push out lots of content. Plus, of course, usually every Friday at 2:30 UK time, I now run live streams direct from our YouTube channel, and we take a look at a whole host of different markets in real time. Right, that's it. Let's get into it and take a look at Bitcoin in a bit more detail. So let's just do a quick recap of the year so far for Bitcoin. Really strong gains into April and hit fresh all-time highs above $60,000 in April as that trend continued. It was only, $20,000 in November, December of last year. But of course, if you follow Bitcoin, you know that its fortunes have changed quite dramatically since then. We've seen it slide heavily from those all-time highs in April to trade as low so far as around $28,750. So a pretty sharp reversal. And in percentage terms, this is a sizable move, obviously. It's a 55% slide from the all-time high to the low hit so far after that high. To put it in perspective, it's the biggest slide since February, March of 2020, when we saw the price hit by 59%. And we saw, of course, plenty of assets hit back then as the coronavirus pandemic really started to spread. There are a few factors behind this. China played its part. For example, in June, we saw a crackdown on crypto mining in China. I think that's one of the things that had an impact, as was the restriction of financial services businesses to offer crypto to its clients. This week, the European Commission has put forward what are just proposals at this stage for stricter regulation when it comes to cryptocurrencies to try and control some of the money laundering aspects, and which ultimately could make transactions in crypto traceable. So that's something that may have weighed on the price this week, but giving it a lift, slight lift in the last 24 hours was Elon Musk once again saying that Tesla quite probably will start taking Bitcoin again at some point in the future. He said the thing that had changed his mind had been the fact he wanted to find out just how much renewable energy was used in Bitcoin mining. This was one of the reasons, he said, that made him decide to stop Tesla from taking Bitcoin in the last couple of months or so. I normally say volatility is the name of the game in crypto. We get used to fairly wide swings. Saying that, since we saw that 28,750 level hit on the big sell-off, we've seen, by Bitcoin standards, fairly low volatility. So let's take a look at the levels to watch. Then we'll jump on the chart and see if there's an opportunity. So the top of the bigger range for Bitcoin comes in above 42,000, but we do have, I think, a bit more of a shorter term obstacle, and that's the 36,500 highs. On the downside, this low, 28,750, is still underpinning the price. We've seen it knock down towards this region recently, but we still see the buyers step back in. As usual, let's put some color on these numbers and take a look at the chart in a bit more detail. If we went back on the chart of Bitcoin to March of last year, you could argue, and I would argue, the longer term trend is still up. I mean, clearly the price really accelerated away in November, December last year. And of course, this year, up until the mid of April, we saw just breakouts continuing to set fresh all-time highs until that changed. Middle of April, when we saw that high above 64,000. But if you took a step back and look at the bigger picture, that trend is still up. The trend line does come in around 20,000 at the moment. So you could argue there's still scope for more weakness from here. But we have seen the price continue to hang on to around the 30,000 level. We've seen moves below it. We'll take a look at the price action in a bit more detail in a second. I've put a 20-day moving average on Bitcoin. I don't think it's telling us too much at the moment. I mean, we had a buy signal here in the middle of June, which proved to be pretty short-lived. And since then, that 20-day moving average has acted almost like a floating resistance level for Bitcoin, currently sitting around 32,700. Perhaps if we got a bit of strength through there, we'd see something of a pop higher in the price. If we take a look at the RSI down here, again with that move within the last couple of days, briefly below 30,000, we saw the RSI go oversold. This is a 10-day RSI. We've seen the price move back up again, but I think probably the price action is the key thing here to take a look at Bitcoin. So just looking at the chart we've got here on the dailies, we'll flip over to the shorter term chart in a second. You can see just how relatively low the volatility has been recently by Bitcoin standards, not by the standards of other markets. But we've got, for me, the important highs to watch from here. May the 20th, around 42,500. Then we had a run up middle of June to 41.2, and it really hasn't been able to break out on the upside. But on the downside, clearly we've got good support. We had that low 19th of May, briefly below 30,000. This low here, which ended up being a false break to the downside at 28,750. So it's really trapped in this range at the moment. Let's take a look on the hourly chart. So if we were waiting for the sign of the next big trend in Bitcoin, we've really got to wait for a breakout, for a confirmed breakout. And at the moment, on the upside, I would be looking for strength through 42,500, that it's shaken off this sideways range and we can start targeting more aggressive objectives on the upside. Now on the downside, 28,750 is really, I think, the big level to watch. If we saw a break below there, perhaps that convinces some people to sell, either take profits or book their losses. But from a short-term trading point of view, you can see whenever we've seen the price trade near or briefly below 30,000, it has been a buying opportunity. So I think that's one level short-term traders will watch. If we zoom in on the last couple of weeks or so, you could argue the trend is down on the hourly chart, and the move we've just seen up near 32,500. You could view it as a selling opportunity up here, looking to sell short, see if we have another look below 30,000 with stops perhaps somewhere the other side of 33,000. So I suppose there are still opportunities in the shorter term. But as most people with Bitcoin tend to be in for the bigger move, I think for me, I'd still be focusing on the daily charts, and the daily charts are telling us that it's still stuck in this sideways range. So something of a boring couple of months for Bitcoin. Lots of volatility day to day and week to week, but we really need to see a breakout from this range to give us some more direction. I'm quite happy to stick with the long position for now. If it breaks below those lows, I'll get taken out. But let's see if it is building a base down here, and if we can have a breakout to the upside at some point and a bit more momentum. That's it for this update in Bitcoin. We'll see if it can perhaps get a bit more interesting and a bit more volatile in the weeks ahead. Come back and look at it again. But for now, from me, David Jones and Capital.com, We'll leave things there. Good luck with your trading. For more trading videos just like this, please subscribe to our channel.